Gotta love them. Or do you?
What's your emergency?
Are you kidding me?
We're going to shine a light on your crimes, so you will be worthless. Cheers.
Hello there, my name is Chris. You're watching Cine Central Extra, the new home for all my non-horror related content. If you want to check out all my horror content, check out my original channel, Cinemaniac Central, which will now only be devoted to horror only content. So now, the Die Hard ripoffs, we've got a ton of them in the 90s that followed the success of the original Die Hard, which pretty much made Bruce Willis an action star. And so we got movies like Executive Decision, Con Air, Air Force One, Passenger 57, just a whole plethora of them. And I think the last real definitive one we got was back in 2018 with Skyscraper, which starred The Rock. So just last month we got a movie called Cleaner, which is another Die Hard ripoff. Pretty much after reading the plot synopsis of it, I'm like, yeah, this has Die Hard written all over it. And seeing the trailer and watching this movie, for me, honestly, Cleaner is more than just a Die Hard ripoff. It's pretty much a straight, faithful interpretation of the original Die Hard. And so that's where I think a lot of the problems for me and for a lot of people probably lie with this movie, is that it feels too familiar to the Die Hard formula. But I'm going to get into the good things, though, which I have only a few. So, first off, the plot. So Cleaner follows Daisy Ridley, who plays Joey, who is a former soldier who's turned window cleaner. And she pretty much spends her days suspended 50 stories outside this skyscraper in London. And it's a skyscraper, basically. It's an office building for that focuses on energy. And so every year they have this gala, and so she pretty much finds herself having to channel her particular set of skills when a group of activists take over this gala and take 300 hostages. And to make matters worse, one of the 300 hostages is her younger brother, Michael. And so now she has to spring into action to save the day and save her brother's life. And she doesn't have the best relationship with her brother, which is more fuel to the fire and more motivation for her to kick ass and take names. And so, yeah, with Daisy Ridley, I've never seen her in anything. The only thing I know of her from, which I've never seen any of them, is the Star Wars franchise. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I've never seen her in any of those movies. And so this is the first time seeing her in anything, and knowing that this is a Die Hard ripoff, I was kind of interested to see where she was going to take that formula. And honestly, I thought she was really good in this. She really channels her action chops. And one thing I do like is I like to see a female kick ass. And so it was really cool to see that, and she does that very well. Clive Owen is also in this, and he is one of the activists that takes over this office building. He was actually my primary hook into watching this, and I think his character is going to go into more of my negatives. But you do have a solid cast here. Unfortunately, they're the only two that I was familiar with or knew of. That kind of drew me in, and where they took his character, I was very disappointed in. I'll talk more about that in my negatives. But more on the positive side is that this is directed by Martin Campbell, who gave us GoldenEye, The Mask of Zorro, The Foreigner with Jackie Chan, and I think he done a really solid job with the direction. And the movie is also filmed very well. There's a lot of great camera angles when it comes to the outside of the skyscraper, and it just looks really good. But unfortunately, that's where my positives end for this movie. Aside from Daisy Ridley kicking ass and giving a good performance and having a good cast overall, the movie just really falters because it's familiar. But not only that, it's too familiar. It feels too much like the original Die Hard. There are so many elements in this movie that this movie borrows from that it leads the movie to feel, it leads the film to not have its own identity. You know, when you compare the two movies, they are vastly similar. You know, you have, instead of a cop, though, you have a soldier who's turned window cleaner that has to, you know, channel their skills. The difference is, you know, Bruce Willis's character, he's just an everyday guy. You know, he is just a cop. You know, he's just a regular cop. You know, he doesn't have those particular set of skills, you know, that's military background to falter on to assist him. He just uses his wits and his experience as a cop to take the bad guys down. You know, but aside from that, you have a skyscraper. You have hostages, of course. You're gonna have that family member in there that's also in danger. You know, and the Die Hard is the wife. Here it's a brother, and so again, it's also very familiar. It's basically a remake of the original. You know, Skyscraper back in 2018. This is pretty much a carbon copy of it. Instead of The Rock, you have Daisy Ridley. You have instead of being a man, it's a woman. And so, like I said before, I love seeing female-led action movies. You know, with women kicking ass. I think it's awesome. I think it's, I'm sorry, but it's hot. It's sexy as hell. And so, but yeah, this movie just feels too much like Die Hard to not have its own identity, to have anything that kind of differentiates itself from it. And so that's where it's kind of disappointing. Also, on the villain side of things, overall, I didn't find them all that interesting. You know, you have one villain who is a trigger happy nut job, and you know, when you compare the villains here and then the villains in Die Hard, you know, they're a lot more, you know, subtle. They're a lot more calculated. They're not just crazy and out of their minds and shit. And you have villains in here that are just kind of nut jobs, and this one dude is just completely off the rails and jumps the gun way too fast. So it's just it's a little bit too much there. But more specifically, Clive Owen, like I said, he was my biggest hook in this movie, and where the movie decides to take his character, I just didn't like. I was very disappointed, and I knew from then on, I was like, man, this is not going to be all that great when it comes to the villain side of things, and I think you just kind of ruined what could have been a better movie. I probably liked this movie a hell of a lot better had this not happened to his character, and I guess you can kind of understand where I'm going with this. And I was left very disappointed, and so Cleaner. I'm just aside from Daisy Ridley giving a really good performance, and the cinematography being good, and the direction, you know, as far as Martin Campbell's, you know, work goes, I just can't recommend it. You know, I just don't find it to be one of the better Die Hard ripoffs. You know, there's a lot better ones out there that have been given to us that I find are way better, a lot more entertaining on both the hero side of things and the villain side of things. And so, Cleaner, I mean, as much as I wanted to like it, wanted to love it, I just ended up just kind of thinking, meh, you know, it's just, I'm kind of in the middle with it. I'm going to have to give it, I'm going to be generous, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Just because of Daisy Ridley's kick-ass performance, and it looks really good, it's shot very well. And so, yeah, Cleaner, just not one of the better Die Hard ripoffs out there. I can't recommend it, but if you are into Die Hard ripoffs, go check it out anyway. If you're a fan of Daisy Ridley, you know, if you want to see her kick some ass, go check it out. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen Cleaner. What did you think of it? What did you think of Daisy Ridley's performance? What did you think of the villain side of things? What did you think about the whole Die Hard aspect and how much of its elements that it borrowed from it? I love you guys. You guys are the best, and I will see you next time.